The Oakland Raiders came to Philadelphia confident of expending little energy and fully expecting to clinch their 5th straight championship in the AFC West. With the help of a non-existent Eagle offense, the Raiders attained both goals without breaking a serious sweat. The Silver and Black tuned up for the playoffs by stampeding into Roman Gabriel's pass pocket and ruining the big quarterback's 1976 debut. Buttressed by Oakland's magnificent offensive line, Raider backs churned out 250 yards rushing, scored 2 touchdowns, and made everything look as simple as a half-speed dummy drill. With quarterback Ken Stabler throwing sparingly, but as usual, effectively, the Raiders won 26-7. Instead of throttling back, the Raiders intend to shift their momentum flush forward to ensure home field advantage in the playoffs. In Oakland, they believe neither snow, ice, wind, rain, or the hot breath of their challengers can stay their appointed destiny. In Atlanta, Roger Staubach's crooked pinky was not the only thing bent out of shape for the flat and still deflating Dallas Cowboys. Dallas' game plan was to resuscitate their vanishing ground game, a vital element in the Cowboys' complex and ornamental yet wonderfully conceived offense. For 3 quarters, things worked out marvelously as Dallas ran well, built a 10-0 lead, and always seemed on the verge of blowing out the Falcons. For 50 minutes, the Doomsday defense, led by Ed Too Tall Jones, number 72, did not allow Atlanta to penetrate their 40-yard line. But suddenly, the Cowboys' offense self-destructed, and the disaster they had flirted with in recent weeks could not be avoided. In a 5-minute stretch in the final period, Dallas committed almost more errors than they had for the entire season, and Atlanta eventually turned every mistake into points. Mike Esposito, number 26, a seldom-used running back, keyed the upset with a 35-yard touchdown burst as they beat the Cowboys on one of those any given Sundays, 17-10. Unlike Dallas, the St. Louis Cardinals have shown no signs of turning stale. And against the Redskins, Terry Metcalf, number 21, demonstrated the quick strike potential of the NFC's top-rated offense. But at this time of the season, even the slickest teams skate on the thin ice that borders the wild and woolly and the downright dangerous. Thus, a Cardinal screen pass that eventuated into a flea flicker from their own end zone can be termed suicidal. However, it was not soft-headed plays, but a solid Redskin defense that denied St. Louis and sacked Jim Hart in crucial situations. Even behind a patchwork offensive line, nifty Mike Thomas, number 22, has been the wheelhorse of the Redskin attack. Thomas rushed for 195 yards, scored their lone touchdown, and gave them a lead from which they were never headed. Trailing 16-10, St. Louis made a belated comeback bid on the wings of a Jim Hart pass to Mel Gray. Gray's heroics fell just short of the tying touchdown as St. Louis dropped their second straight to Washington. George Allen's tired remnants and retreads keep hanging in, losing some they should win and winning some they should lose. But in the end, when a title or a wild card berth is in the offing, these salty old dogs are yapping and howling in the final scramble for that Super Bowl bone. last Sunday in Milwaukee, the Packers gave the Vikings headaches. As Fran Tarkenton said, their defensive line was just exceptional. Everybody tries to earn their reputation against a good team like ours. The score was tied at 3, with just a half-minute left in the second quarter when Tarkenton and Chuck Foreman pulled off this 25-yarder on 4th and 21. With just 6 seconds left in the half, Tarkenton finally put Minnesota on top with this pass to running mate Robert Miller, number 35. In the second half, the old Statue of Liberty play put Chuck Foreman back in business. Chuck Foreman needs only 58 more yards for another 1,000-yard rushing season. And he has also caught an even 50 passes for another 500-plus yards. Chuck Foreman is one big reason the Vikings clinched their 8th division title in the last 9 years. Another reason was Fran Tarkenton's 303rd career touchdown pass. It went to Ahmad Rashad in the fourth quarter as Minnesota squeezed past Green Bay 17-10. In Buffalo last week, no titles were won. In fact, there occurred some of the strangest looking plays of the season. This end zone recovery gave the Bills their only touchdown, while San Diego's Dan Fouts bombed away to Charlie Joyner, the NFL leader in receiving yardage, with 970. The Chargers won their first in 5 games, and in so doing, handed the Bills their 7th consecutive loss in Buffalo's longest season in several years. The weather was better downstate on Long Island, where Steve Grogan and company worked out against the Jets. Andy Johnson's effort resulted in the first Patriots score, and in all, Steve Grogan accounted for 3 touchdowns through the air. Richard Todd started again for New York and threw a scoring pass of his own to surprising Rookie of the Year candidate Clark Gaines, number 21. As has become custom lately with the Jets, Joe Namath relieved Todd after the game's first 2 series, and he added still another touchdown pass. But the Jet quarterbacks could not keep the ball away from the greedy New England defenders. Of 10 total turnovers for New York, 7 were interceptions, and 2 were returned for long touchdowns by number 34, Prentice McRae. The Patriots won their 8th game, which assured them their best season in the last 10 years. In Tampa, Cleveland Browns quarterback Brian Sipe gave Florida fans a pretty good chance to reminisce over an old friend. 12-year wide receiver Paul Warfield, number 42. Midway in the third quarter, Sipe found Warfield for the touchdown, which broke a 7-7 tie. This rare Buccaneer touchdown play from Steve Spurrier to Essex Johnson had averted a possible 5th shutout for the NFL's bottom-ranked offense. Unfortunately for Steve Spurrier, the Buccaneer offensive line is not yet capable of giving him much protection, and Cleveland took full advantage of this weakness. The Browns rolled to their 6th victory in the last 7 games, 24-7. And remained tied with Pittsburgh for 2nd place in the amazing AFC Central Division. With bearded Terry Bradshaw injured and a young upstart rookie named Mike Krutzik at quarterback, one has to wonder how the Steelers have managed to win 6 in a row. Well, they haven't been doing it with mirrors. Until last week's battle with the Houston Oilers, The Pittsburgh defense had allowed but 3 points in their last 4 outings, while the Steelers were racking up 109 for themselves. Needless to say, Pittsburgh's title hopes have been kept breathing not by an iron lung, but by a steel curtain. However, last week, veteran quarterback John Hadl gave the Steelers a few depressing moments as he led his team to 2 touchdowns, including this 69-yard pass to Ken Burrow. Despite the momentary generosity, the Steelers kept their eye on the playoff picture as they ran the victory 32-16. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, Ram quarterback Pat Hayden was first a juggler and then a doormat. In the face of a withering attack with the apt name 49ers Gold Rush, Hayden found himself a man trapped in a flesh slide. Despite his early difficulties, the first-year signal caller finally got all day to throw and made it pay off on a 49-yard strike to wide-open receiver Ron Jesse. Try as he might, 49er quarterback Jim Plunkett could get nothing going all day. Monty Jackson's theft and touchdown run made the final score Rams 23, 49ers 3, and was certainly worth some celebration, as it gave Los Angeles a 1.5 game lead in the NFC West with but 3 games to go. Though the picture looks bleak for the 49ers at present, they should take heart, for anything can happen in this topsy-turvy season. Just ask the Atlanta Falcons. Last week in Seattle, the Seahawks were everybody's favorite. After battling the Vikings in a narrow 27-21 loss the previous week, who could blame Seahawk fans for having great expectations against the New Orleans Saints? Definitely there were moments to applaud, like this Bill Munson to Steve Largent pass. Once again, quarterback Jim Zorn proved to be a man of much potential as he rolled in for a Seahawk score. Even the porous Seattle defense had a fleeting moment of goodness. But then it all fell apart as the Saints began marching in on the legs of number 42, Chuck Muncie. Much-traveled quarterback Bobby Douglas rolled around end for 3 yards and one New Orleans score. Then a flare pass and a shoulder-flapping run by number 34, Tony Galbraith, brought the Saints knocking again. This time, it was Chuck Muncie's turn to do the honors. And can it be as easy as it looks? To take away some of the suspense, let it be known that New Orleans scored a whopping 51 points last week. But it wasn't all because the Seattle defense was ineffective. Safety Tom Myers' fumble recovery and return was good for another New Orleans score. And somehow, you got the picture that the Saints were living saintly lives when a Bill Munson hookup to defensive tackle Alex Price accounted for 23 yards and yet another New Orleans tally. With the final score a near embarrassing 51-27, one must wonder how long it will be before the Seattle defense will speak to the Seattle offense. Tradition haunts the Kansas City Chiefs. But this year's squad is marching to the beat of a different drummer. The resurgent Chief offense has ranked at or near the top of the American Conference for the entire season. Former World Football League star Tommy Riemann, number 21, is one reason for the turnaround. But even more influential has been the superb season-long play of quarterback Mike Livingston. After years as Len Dawson's heir apparent, Livingston inherited the starting job this season, and his performance has been nothing short of remarkable. The Chiefs' air game is currently pro football's best, but Kansas City's ability to score points simply can't overcome its defense's tendency to give them up. For the fact is, the Chiefs' defense is the most generous in football. Archie Griffin's 77-yard sprint inspired Cincinnati's normally sluggish ground attack as the Bengals rolled up 269 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns en route to a 27-24 victory. Cincinnati's performance confirmed an old maxim about defensive football. If you can't stop the other guy, you ain't going nowhere. The Denver Broncos specialize in stopping the other guy. Last week, the Bronco defense held New York in check while Otis Armstrong and company controlled the football. Armstrong rushed for 97 yards, but the Bronco attack could eke out only 14 points. Still, it proved to be enough, for what little forward progress New York could muster came from their special teams. New York did manage an offensive touchdown later in the game, but in typical Giant fashion, they blew a conversion. Chalk up loss number 10 for the G-men. In Detroit, the stage was set for another disappointment. Detroit's league-leading defense put its ranking on the line against the NFL's leading rusher, Walter Payton, against the Lions. It was no contest. The swarming Lion defense limited Payton to a scant 40 yards, then proceeded to dismantle the Bear air game as well. Bob Avellini and the Bears broke out of the Lions' den only once, when rookie speed merchant James Scott outran Detroit's coverage. Walter Payton, James Scott, and the Bears' bright young offensive stars were overshadowed last week by a 9-year veteran whose star has finally arrived. For years, Detroit fans have waited patiently for quarterback Greg Landry to realize his enormous football potential. Landry's day seems to have arrived. Landry currently is the #1 passer in pro football. Last week, Landry hit on 15 of 26 passes for 2 touchdowns, including this perfectly executed post pattern to wide receiver Larry Walton. The Lions are hard to figure. With the league's leading passer and stingiest defense, Detroit owns the ingredients of a champion. But those dreadful mistakes continue to plague the Lions as Detroit heads for yet another second-place finish behind the Vikings. One of these days, one of these teams, the Bears or the Lions, will challenge Minnesota's dominance in the NFC Central Division. But this season, the status quo has been preserved. While the Bears and Lions and Packers continue to beat up on one another, the Vikings can still beat them all. So has it been for nearly a decade, and so will it be in the Black and Blue Division until a contender can emerge from the pack of also-rans.